square to the board. That'll be, at least we have that to start with. All right. So what that means is, edge of the paper need to be parallel to the edge of the board. Why would we need that to be the case? For the t-square to be straight, right? Does everybody know what a t-square does? No. What does a t-square do, anybody? Makes right angles. Yeah, exactly. You can use this edge here to make sure that anything that you draw along this edge is at a right angle or a square. All right, so clamp this. This is nice and flexible, so clamp down the ruler and make sure that the head of the t-square stays square against the edge. And then take your paper and kind of jog it up against the top so that it's sitting nice and square along the edge of the ruler of the t-square. So jog it up, then now take your hand like this, everybody look, and push down on the paper, then you can let go of the t-square. And take your tape and tape at least 2 corners of your paper down. Okay, so next we're going to lay out a rectangle that's 10 by 15. Take your mechanical pencil and your t-square and place your t-square somewhere around, along the bottom of the paper, somewhere around 1 inch from the edge. But you don't have to measure it. It needs to be somewhere about 1 inch up from the edge. So the head of the t-square, again, make sure it's jogged up against the edge of the board. And then clamp down with your fingers so that it bends a little bit and it's flat against your paper. Now run a line with your pencil straight across the paper, edge to edge, somewhere around 1 inch, half an inch to 1 inch from the edge. If you're a righty, you probably want to have the head of your t-square on your left so that you can clamp with your left hand and draw with your right hand. Okay, now we have just a line across the paper, not much use, right? So what we want to do is we want to start making some vertical lines to make a rectangle. Now I'm going to take the t-square and I'm going to clamp it against the bottom of the board. So I'm going to do this, clamp the t-square on, hold it down with my hand, and draw a line top to bottom like that, which is not straight. Paper's crooked. You guys, I want to point something out while you're working on this. Everybody look at my paper here. Look at that vertical line. See how I drew it twice? I drew it twice because the first time I drew it I thought, that's not right. That doesn't look straight. That's not square. I must have drawn it funny. I drew it again and it went funny again. And you know why? The paper's not square. The pad of paper has been trimmed crookedly, and this happens with some frequency with manufactured stuff. This is why you're using a t-square and a board, which you hope is actually square, right? It's much more like, the board's more likely to be square than the paper is. So as long as the live area, like we talked about, as long as the live area is actually square, or rectangular rather, and it is the right shape, it doesn't matter what the paper looks like. So it's okay that it's trimmed crooked, but no, you can't just measure from the edge of the paper because you'd end up with a non-rectangular live area. Okay? So that's why we're using t-square. So they should have a bottom and a side. Bottom and a side, yep. And then you measure across. 10 inches. Look at it, double check it. It really is 10 inches. Look, double check, yay, I made it 10 inches. Now, you can make your second vertical line at 10 inches. Okay, now you guys can probably figure out from here, measure up from the bottom 15 inches. And make a tick mark at 15. And draw another horizontal. Okay, now everybody be paranoid, please, and check all your corners. And make sure you have 15 inches on both sides, and 10 inches top and bottom. Just look here in this last panel here. This is another thing you can do if you have a triangle. It's good to have to check check the squareness of your corners. That would be checking against, you know, is your board really square and have you done your work right? It's another way of checking. It's just it's a double checking technique, okay?
So Jessica, at home in your own studio, you're using your drawing table.
Yeah, I use a drawing table. I have actually, my setup is not that different from this in some ways because I have a little drawing board that sits on top of a table and it has legs and it sits at an angle on the table. But it's got very square edges and I use the edge of the drawing board as the edge of this drawing board. Matt has actually a really large drawing table and he has a very long T-square and he uses that for his, for laying out and for lettering. And I have to say, I'm a self-taught cartoonist. I had to figure all this stuff out by myself, and for many, many years, I used the edge of the paper, and I'd use this ruler like this, and I'd, lay it along here, and go like, okay, that's an inch, and I'd lay it out using the paper itself. But here, I just open this pad up, and this pad is crooked, and I would have ended up with crooked pages, and I probably wouldn't have noticed until they got printed on a piece of paper that was square, and I'd think they were all crooked, and I'd think, what happened? And I wouldn't even know, right? So that's what T-squares are for.